Hello, and welcome to this session on Breaking the Box, how emerging technology can close the cybersecurity skills gap. My name is Diana Kelly, and I am the CTO and co-founder at Security Curve. And joining me today to present this topic is
Devi Sri Nayak, and my name is, people call me Devi Sri. I'm an assistant teaching professor at the University of Washington, Tacoma, and I teach IT and cybersecurity courses, and it's an honor to join here and, speaking about this topic, which I'm passionate about.
Yeah, we're both really excited to be able to present this. So we know that the session is recorded, but we are also here live with you in the chat. So if you have questions as you're listening to this presentation, please, we can interact with you in the chat so that you can have a more that experience of being with us as though we were all together in person at RSA. So our agenda, we're going to just go over this real quick. We're going to discuss the different aspects of why there are issues with hiring right now and with getting a better talent pool. And then we're going to use the model of explaining what the problem is and then talking about box breaking. So we'll first talk a little bit about the problem, things like scholarships, reskilling, and then we'll do the box breaking. That's the slide that follows. We'll talk about how emerging technology can help. So to get us started, we're going to talk about the big one, which is the cybersecurity skills gap. You hear so much about this in the news, the headlines. Sometimes I talk to people that want to get into cybersecurity. I'm sure you do this a lot, Dimitri, too. A lot of people are like, how do I get in? And when you ask them, why do you want to be in cybersecurity? It's often because of this skills gap. The headlines are that there's no unemployment. And I think in a lot of people's minds, that feels like, oh, there's no unemployment. I'll never be without a job. And I'm going to get out of school and people are going to offer me these incredible, well-paying jobs that are doing really cool things in cybersecurity. And while it is true that there is a skills gap and that it can be very hard if you're a hiring manager in cyber to find the right talent, it's also not the truth that everybody who graduates instantly the next day has this incredible six-figure job of their dreams. Because the reality is that some people do graduate with degrees or are maybe going from one job looking for the next, and it can be a little bit challenging to find that next job. And here's an example from a user at Reddit talking about, that they have a master's in cybersecurity. They've got this very respected security certificate from CompTIA, Security Plus, but is still having trouble finding jobs. So this is a reality. It does happen. Why, though? What is the disconnect? Well, part of that is really that in cybersecurity, because we're a fairly nascent practice, and I know that cybersecurity has been around for decades. I've been practicing for decades, but if you compare cybersecurity to, say, accounting or to consulting at the Big Four, I just made a same bridge with accounting and consulting, or being a doctor or a lawyer, the career paths are a little bit clearer because these practices have been around for a longer amount of time. In cybersecurity, it may be confusing if you started out as an analyst in a SOC or in a operations center. Where do you go from there? Is CISO where everybody wants to go, for example? And John Altzik did a really good assessment of this in the Life and Times of Cybersecurity Professionals, this report that he put out, taking a look at what is it like to be in the world of cybersecurity and what is our career path? Another issue that can be really hard as people are trying to either get that first job or as they're growing in their career is just general confusion at companies about cyber. What does cyber mean? Where does the CISO sit? Are they actually, they've got a C title, but are they in the C-suite, or are they a director that just gets the C title because everybody talks CISO? What's the importance of cyber? Have we graduated from being the Dr. No's of the world? Back when I started practicing, it felt like we were always just saying, no, you can't do that. That's not a good idea. So it felt like security was kind of holding the business back instead of moving the business forward. So that's some of the disconnects. And I know that certifications is one that's really important to you, Devi. So I'm going to hand off.
So certifications and education, because I'm, teaching in cybersecurity. I think that it's a kind of an intersection of certifications and education and hands-on. And it's also, it's very, very important that we should not be considering in one bucket and like a stack. It's like, this is the only path for cybersecurity. Like, if you are like doing hands-on, then only hands-on is going to be. If you are like, going in a certification path, in high school or after high school, then it will be one. So like, it's a very much like an intersection of like, you do you, and you can choose your own path in cybersecurity, and you do have a good understanding. And then there is also like, we are trying to push diverse security and inclusion, which is very, very important, because when we have a diverse set of teams, the approaches when we come is very different. Like if a person is coming from criminology, if a person is coming from education, same with different speaking different languages, understanding of culture, it's a very, very important that we stress on those things, not only like in a one set of mindset, rather than very diverse group of ideas set, diverse representation. And then moving on, when we talk about power of starting early, it's more about like, curiosity into career, especially like, pushing our young generation to participate in cybersecurity, that actually raise the bar, and they are very much curious, and make them aware of like, why cybersecurity is important. The way we actually teach them why security is important, when we teach a child that don't speak to an unknown. So the way nowadays that now we are in a virtual world, and we are connected in the virtual world, and we are taking education in a virtual world, I think that like pursuing the curiosity and starting from K5 is very, very important. Giving that confidence, and at least doing workshops, and like, developing the play activities, Legos, building that confidence is very, very important. And, the scientific exploration, and like, I think that like, with lifetime scientific exploration, Diana, you have explored a lot, and I would love if you take it from here, share your experience a little bit, like how you have done, lifetime experience with this.
Yeah, and I think that this is really where the box starts getting broken, is that sometimes, we think a few things. We think that maybe children aren't going to be, engineers, or they're not as interested in math, or there may be gender decisions on, this gender likes technology and mathematics, and this gender doesn't. And, let's break out of the box and start very early about as you talked about, things like Legos. That begins to, a lot of the engineers were started out with the Lego building. So getting into this very early approach to ensure that people get the love of the technology early, especially because when children are younger, the neuroplasticity is so much greater than if we lock in this belief with children very early that they can't do one thing or another. They're going to grow up conditioned to think that, and our brains kind of just like set that way. Whereas when children see it as play and fun, and that everybody is capable of doing something in science, in technology, and you get that and you ignite that, then you start to really break out of this box of, certain kinds of people can't do technology, and people, children unfortunately grow up to be adults that believe some of these stories that they hear. So using tools like, being able to build these systems and create more play in school can really help. And there's a lot of technology that can help with that. Not just, so it's a social and it's a program problem, but also technology can help us with some of these tools. For example, there's this great little thing called bedtime math, which is for very young children as early as 3, helping them to start have fun with math. So even, very young with your children, you can, and with schools can encourage this to really get to get that fun with technology. And there are a lot of now different programs for women specifically, things like Girls Who Code, to really get that engagement early on, and using technology and using this play. So instead of just having kids with their iPads kind of batting around at things and playing games, they can play games that ignite this real passion for technology. Are there any that are some of your favorites, Stevie?
Yes, that's actually great. Like CS for All, Khan Academy, code.org. Those are the websites. Like whenever I actually, do workshops with middle schoolers, high schoolers, I gave them that's like, this is one of the takeaways you can, pursue, which actually help you grow, because code.org it's actually teaches you more like how to building blocks and create a music, and then being creative, and it enhances creativity. And then Chick Tech, I'm a volunteer myself at Chick Tech as well, where we conduct workshops which a little bit older, like who are going to be more in high school and professionals, where like the hunger of technology and how to use it and how to make it a profession out of them. And then going a little bit more deeper about like data structure and algorithm, more like there is always a lack of saying that, oh, math is hard, or computer science is hard, or coding is hard, but it is the regular process, repetitive process we do every day. I think that's kind of when they see this type of Khan Academy and code.org and several resources, they are able to build their confidence by themselves, and this with the support of other people as well. And then there is other resources as well, based on experience and what the background they're coming from. And if we can, in our upcoming slides, we will be more discussing on that.
Yeah, and it's just amazing when children grow up doing something, they don't question whether they're capable of it or not. It just becomes so much something that they own in themselves. So getting that, again, this being early with training and using some of these great new tools that are available to help engage people is, I think, really going to change the cybersecurity skills gap overall. So, okay, what else? What else can be done? So some other things that the students are concerned about and looking at, things like scholarships, internships, and externships. And where the real issue comes is those students that are graduating with these master's degrees and with, with these great certifications, what they might not have is experience. And that really creates this chicken or egg problem. And I don't know if you've seen some of those memes lately that have been going around on LinkedIn, but people are getting really frustrated. They're seeing advertisements for entry-level jobs. Somebody, we're hiring somebody fresh out of school. Here's an entry-level job, but we want 5 years of experience. It's like, wait, what? How does it work that way? How did you just get out of school and you have 5 years of experience? So there's this real chicken or egg problem of people desperate they want experience, but they just don't, they can't get those first jobs. So one of the things that can be really, really helpful here is to explore things like internships and externships. So an internship, you may be paid or unpaid. Externships could be something that you do while you're still in school, so that you may take a semester that you go out and you do an externship from that school with a company, a local company. And then now you've got some experience, or you can, if your school doesn't offer something like that, you can look into internship programs. Now, some of them are paid, and that's great. So, don't just say, I can't afford to do an internship. Look at, and some externships are paid too. So if you need to get paid, and a lot of people are paying for school and going into debt with that, then of course you would want to focus on the paid kinds of programs, but also unpaid can be very helpful. And if you're not a job seeker, but you're a job hirer, and you're looking at how maybe you and your organization can start doing a little bit more box breaking and help close this gap, start getting creative about what you may be able to put into an intern or externship. Think about the processes at your organization, how they run, and if there's any component of that that could be broken off to give to a student to give them some experience, so that they don't have to graduate with no experience. And then there are scholarships, who I know are very close to your heart.
So the scholarship, and I really agree with you when we talk about internships and externships. And then I tell to my students always that, having an internship is very, very important. And if you can find any and helping to anybody in your school, in your community, in your local group, spiritual group you are part of, or anything, if you can help like local businesses in, that can be an internships and have getting paid, or speak about it, raising awareness about cybersecurity. So it can be anything, experience counted towards your dedication. And then there is scholarship, and this scholarship is, there are different types of scholarship when we talk about. One of the few great scholarship is one of CyberCorp scholarship for service, and it's actually help you like it's a 2 to 3 years of scholarship. You can apply in bachelor's or master's and PhD programs, where actually when you the United States government will pay for your education and your stipend, and you'll get a professional development. Also, like after you finish that, for undergrad, you get almost like 25 grand, and for graduate it's 34 K. And then once you graduate, you will able to get like, a federal government, state, local, and in your county level as well, for your service, what you have been offered. And that's a great scholarship for people who would like to explore a career in cybersecurity. And it will be paid for your school as well, and it will also help you to get the certification and experience and the internships what you are looking for. It is a great package, and I always tell people to look for. One of the great scholarship program and the association is WISES, which Diana and we both are part of, Women in Cybersecurity, which also offers not only to students, women, veterans, we all person of color, very much encouragement. I am actually part of that group since 2014 when I was a grad school. And then there are other scholarships, like as we mentioned, that Center of Cyber Safety and Education, there is Women's Scholarship, there is Veteran Scholarship, there is also like when we talk about like more scholarship for undergraduate and graduate. So there are opportunities. And then, College Board Scholarship Search. There are many, box, like, when we're trying to break this box that how opportunities are, we need to look for, we need to ask questions. And we also, like, if you see, there is a big push of, diversity, inclusion, and also like different sections of cybersecurity, not only in general. Like there is pen testing, there is policy, and there is criminology, and there is, IT operations, so many. So that's what we are trying to, like, kind of trying to build the generation gap and skill gap when we talk about, continuing, we will be talking about like how we will be like the scholarship and other educations and, interdisciplinary education will help in our career exploration in cybersecurity.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important. Yeah, the interdisciplinary work of, that cyber is now expanding because it's such a big, important part of our world now. And then also one thing that was interesting is Forage is looking at virtual work experience programs. So it's not just for COVID where everybody was getting virtual work experience, but also that's something that can help to, if you can't go to, I had mentioned, local companies, right? The nice thing about it, orgs like Forage are starting to look at how we can give people experience, even if they don't happen to be right there, so that they can do it remotely. But we had talked about some of these skills, and that cyber is really. Sometimes people think about you're in the basement and you're or in a data center and your head's down and you're just writing code all the time, which is, what? That's actually, I know a lot of practitioners who do that. They're threat hunters, they're reverse engineers. They love it. And that's great. And that's that is one thing that you can do if you're very introverted, for example, and you really do just like being between you and the keyboard and the code. There are roles for you in cyber, but there are also a lot of skills that really enhance what you can do in cyber and different kinds of careers that people can take on. And when we talk about this type of career take on, we also talk about not only like coders, but also like people who are investigators, people who are more learning about cybersecurity analysis and having an interdisciplinary approach, helping to catch cyber criminals who are trying to abuse their power or their talent in a very different ways. And online crime has been grown since we all switched to virtual, if we compare, and
if you see different websites, like, every there is, Interpol website, that how crime has impacted when we become virtual, and how the schools and middle schools, high schools are being targeted all across the globe. The data is very overwhelming. And when we talk about like more, interdisciplinary, so cybersecurity, as I mentioned from the beginning, that it is very much diverse. It's not only like, I think that there used to be a stereotype that only computer scientists can go and pursue cybersecurity, but that's actually it is a myth, because there are diverse backgrounds. For example, criminology, criminal justice, and sociology, psychology. You can study about the crime, and like those theories are very older theories now being implemented in cyber security. Then we are talking about engineering, when engineering cyber physical system infrastructure is being targeted, smart grid we talk about, and then how we will give a safer environment. When we talk about like criminology, it used to be a myth that we only folks talk about like, general security. Well, the physical security is very, very important, because the data centers where you talk about, the data are stored, it's in a physical place, the computers are stored in a physical place. So that's like very, very important, that we also combine in our studies, that how it is important to have an interdisciplinary approach of thinking. And then when we talk about like physical security of cameras, the right positioning, the angles, and the builds of like, now highly magnifying cameras, where we can literally focus on particular and find out who are that they're helping in very much cyber investigation. Mathematics, and using mathematics to enhance cryptographic algorithm encryptions, and which will help to come more navigation, like, when in network, more defensive mechanism. So it's a very, very diverse. You can be a music background, you can be a psychology background, you can pursue cybersecurity. So don't get disappointed that you are pursuing your passion and not. So if you are pursuing any major, you do have a place in cybersecurity.
Yeah, and hiring managers too. Think about, if you are looking at right now, you may be trying to do attribution work for a nation state, and it doesn't just have to be people who have worked for a 3-letter agency in the U.S. Psychology and sociology may be able to really help. So start thinking about what rounds out that work that you're actually hiring for, and you may realize that different kinds of backgrounds are going to be very valuable to this.
And when we talk about like, again, reskilling, and we need to step back and think that not only one type of person should we be hiring, or rather than diversity set. As an educationist, as an educator, there are different paths. And we are now far advanced than traditional education system. So it depends on where you are skill set at and where you are like, fit in. Not everybody is coming from the same route. Everybody has a different background. So if some people are like small environment rather than like, overwhelming of large universities, they can go to community college and have a associate degree, and then pursue and transfer those credits to 4 year of college, and then, pursue their education if they're interested. They can also do both. They can work simultaneously full-time and do community college, all do boot camps. Those boot camps also offers, if you are from a different major and want to switch to cybersecurity, those boot camps are foundation to help you to create an environment, give confidence that what is encryption, what is networking, what is foundational concept of open source intelligence starting. And then when we talk about certifications, also comes with training as well. Find the opportunities, add with the scholarship opportunities, reach out to people. If somebody can sponsor you as well, there are folks who will be interested in sponsoring. And there is continuous education and learning when we talk about, and we can show our skills with different hackers, bug crowd, and Diana, you have experience with the talking about like CTFs and other things. Any thoughts in this, talking about?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's true. I mean, as Dee Dee was saying, there are so many great programs, and certainly going to school. I mean, Dee Dee's a professor, right? You're teaching cybersecurity. So there's a lot of great experience that or at least knowledge that you can get from those boot camps and everything. But if you want to add to that, think about a little bit of box breaking with going out and showing your skills. And some examples are you can actually make some money doing this too. And this is something that as a student, whether you're reskilling, so whether you're coming in from another, you've had a different career and you've decided that's no longer the right career for you. So you want to maybe explore cyber, get into cyber, or if you're just graduating from school, you can augment all that, even your internships and your degree and your certifications. You can augment that by showing your skills. And some examples here, there's an annual every time DEF CON, which is it was the conference that actually existed before Black Hat existed, and Black Hat was sort of made to be the businessy side of DEF CON, but they both still run. So after Black Hat, you probably heard of Black Hat. DEF CON runs the weekend after Black Hat. They have a capture the flag event every year. So that's something that you can show, hey, I was able to win this contest. HackerOne, BugCrowd, and then some companies like Microsoft, they're offering big bounties if you go and you find a vulnerability and you report it properly. So with all of these bounty kinds of programs that we're talking about, there are parameters of acceptable use within the bounty program. So be sure that you've read all the terms and conditions, you understand what's scoped and what's out of scope. But once you've done that, it's quite possible, in addition to having a really good resume builder to break out of the box with, you may also be able to earn a little bit of coin. I think, right, that there's some like $150,000 bounties, depending on what that company is looking for the person to go try and find as far as vulnerability. So if you want to kind of stretch yourself, stretch your chops, you can start looking at some of these programs. And if you're a hiring manager, strongly advise you to take seriously if somebody has listed one of these on their resume. What it shows is they went out and they responsibly were able to find a vulnerability, or in a very competitive environment with a lot of very skilled hackers, good hackers, right? The right side of not being criminal hackers, but at something like a DEF CON CTF, they were able to successfully win that. So that actually tells you a lot as the hiring manager about what they're capable of. All right, so how about recruiting? If you've ever applied for a job online, one of the pain point, and it's interesting because it's technology. I think they were trying to break the box initially with this kind of technology, but it's caused a lot of agita, which is ATS, or the applicant tracking systems. So in these systems, what they're looking for is they're matching a job words to the resume, so the job description words to the resume. And if they don't get the match, very often they're throwing out really good candidates. And I know that can be very frustrating. And if we go back to that like original slide that we showed where the Redditor was saying, I've applied for 1,000 jobs and I'm not getting any, there's a good bet that underneath at least a number of those rejections was just a mismatch in the ATS. So that candidate's resume might just not have had the exact words that the ATS was looking for. So this has caused some angst in recruiting. And if you are a company using this and you feel like you're just not getting the talent pool, you might want to look at how you're using and implementing ATS. Also job descriptions themselves. We talked a little bit before about the person who graduates from college and they're like, hey, we want 5 years of experience. Also, I've seen these job descriptions that it looks like, I look at it and I've been doing this for a long time. And I feel like, wow, I should have the skills to do that, but they're asking for so much. Like they want basically the kitchen sink. And again, for if you're a hiring manager, if you're working in HR, maybe rethink about these job descriptions. If don't write the job description that's double what you want because you figure people are just going to apply whether they only have 50% of that skill set or not. Really write the job very clearly for who you want, and also think about the language in it. If you say he, as you're saying, this person, this engineer, he is going to do this and he is going to do that, that might disincent somebody who isn't a he, doesn't use those pronouns, to think, well, maybe this job isn't for me.
When we talk about like different things, and it's very, very important to create an inclusive environment for everybody, not starting from the job description, because half of the population may not be he, and there are other half of the population in the world who also interested in smart and equally intelligent and would like to contribute to this and are doing really great work in the cybersecurity.
Yeah. And some really fun recruiting box breakers that have come out now are, like Amazon went on Tinder and said, we're hiring engineers, which is, I don't know how effective that was, but it's great that they're just trying to sort of break the box their own way. And then Google actually went out and bought a billboard, and they put this here over here, first 10-digit prime founding consecutive digits of e.com. And that's all that was on the billboard. And their thinking was, well, they wanted really creative engineers, and they felt that creative engineers would be challenged by this and go out and respond. And that's exactly what happened with that recruiting. So this is, instead of having job descriptions that may be confusing or ATS systems that may be knocking out some of your really good candidates, these are really creative ways to start saying, let's hire in the way that we want our people to be. Let's see if they're creative or social, I guess, in the case of Tinder, and creative in the case, and really interested and investigatory in the case of the Google billboard.
Yes, that's really awesome. And when we talk about this type of environment, we really make sure that environment of this type of where to get the news, where to get the job description or job post, and also mention Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and all social media websites, and nowadays posts are available everywhere, when you interact. But how do we get this job? Is it a traditional go to the website and apply for the job? Well, the scenario has changed. It's 2021, and there is networking, mentorship, there is advocacy, and so the networking part is very, very important. I stress in my class and wherever I go and speak about it, because it's very, very important that if you are in a virtual mentoring session, networking session, if you are attending virtual conferences, I'm talking about in a COVID situation, try to get a contact information, add them on LinkedIn, and have an email chat or maybe a virtual coffee or virtual lunch. So that's how you kind of get to know each other, where we are not physically made. When we go back to the normal, they say, try to reach out to people who can help you. It can be a professor, you can be a hiring manager, it can be your in your own circle, in your who can help you in your spiritual group as well. Say hey, I'm trying to break into cybersecurity. Would you please introduce me if you don't know anybody? Another thing is that mentorship, and which I think Diana and I both do in a mentorship program, which is helping others and kind of giving back what we got help as well. And also it helps others to understand that, that, hey, you are not alone. I'm here with you. Let's help each other out. That it's a mentoring session when you also learn from your mentees. And currently I'm doing mentorship with UISES, and I have 5 mentees. It's a kind of give and take, healthy relationship. I'm learning from them and they're learning from me. So it's very, very important having a mentor who can navigate with this storm of how to build your career, get a job, and and go in a right track, because it's an umbrella of cybersecurity. What is the specialty of passion and the advocacy when we talk about cybersecurity advocacy? And Diana, I would love to have your thoughts on that when you talk about advocacy and being an advocate of cybersecurity and reverse mentoring. How do you encourage people to be a part of it?
Yeah. So, and one thing is, it's important to understand that there are advocates and mentors. You may have the same one, but an advocate is somebody at the company that you're working for who's going to, or out in the field, who's going to advocate for you and your career. But they really help when you've got an advocate within your own company, because they can help you to see barriers or hurdles to your advancement. A mentor can be somebody in or outside of your company that is more about talking to you as a person and listening to your career issues, and maybe helping you with the experience that they've got. So you need both advocates and mentors. And then I strongly recommend reverse mentorship. The farther that you get along in your career, the more important it is to keep talking to people that are younger than you and understand what they're doing and how they're changing things so that you can stay really fresh. And some of the new networking that's out there and available are things like, if you don't have employee resource groups at your company yet, start looking at that so you can bring people that are like-minded together. And it can really, it can help. When I was at Microsoft, I was a member of the vegan ERG. And at first I was like, what is this? And then I realized, oh my gosh, it's actually really kind of fun to be around people that are also vegan and dealing with, a lot of times people are mean to us about the fact that we're vegan. So it was just kind of nice to be able to have that, or virtual mentors, again, getting a lot of virtual stuff going on. So virtual mentors at USC. So with that, we just wanted to wrap with apply what you've learned today. So next week, please, I'm going to cover hiring managers. If you're the hiring manager, think about what you're doing versus some of these box breakers that we talked about. If you're trying to get hired,
if you're trying to get hired, always think about that, what as hiring managers are looking for, and looking at the job description. Very, very important that what particular talent you have. And it is very, very important also, like if you don't qualify for 100%, do apply. It's not only 100% they look for, it's like a general description that can be many things which a part of. So don't get discouraged of like, okay, I don't have all the checklist. So look for what you have everything, and your education internships, make your resume suit, and you will be able to take that next step when if you are hiring.
And it's from 3 months from now, if you're a hiring manager, take a look after you've thought about some of your current processes and where they might be disabling you to hire. Think about what those test cases from the box breakers that we shared, or the own box breakers that you're thinking of, what might you want to actually start implementing within your hiring program.
And if you are looking for a job, and look for that within 3 months, what you have developed after this talk, and what are the takeaways, and where did you have applied? Did you find a mentor, or did you do a certification on that? So that kind of like take it away. And within 6 months, as a if you're a hiree and looking for jobs, add your job description into a role and explain what you have done in cybersecurity.
Yeah, pay it forward, because that can really help. You can be the change at the companies that you go to. And if you're a hiring manager, of course, if you've implemented some new programs, do some measurement and optimization to see if they're working. We had a ton of resources here for you. There are even more out there that you can go and look at, things like Girls Who Code and some of the other references we made, but we have a short list of those resources right here, so you can take a deeper look at some of the information that we shared. And with that, I want to thank you so much, Devi, for breaking the box with me. And we hope you picked up a couple of hints and ideas about how, either as a hiring manager or someone out looking for a job, that you can break the box and help to close the cybersecurity skills gap going forward, because we need more good people in cyber, right?
I completely agree with you. And Diana, thank you for having this talk with me and sharing your experience as a perspective of hiring and other, the words of wisdom in cybersecurity, I say. And it's a great opportunity, folks. It's great to be, sharing this experience with you. Feel free to reach out outside of this, as resources has been given to you. If any questions, that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.